Hey everyone, welcome back to the Photo Business Success Podcast. I'm Morgan, one of your hosts. This is Megan. And today we're going to talk about how your environment can help you level up in your business. So, Megan, do you want to go ahead and start?
Well, I think we need to start with what even is environment? Like, what does that mean? Are we talking about like trees and grass or like what is environment?
Yeah, so environment is everything from your surroundings, like what your office looks and feels like, to your home, to the people around you. So this is super important to make sure like you're surrounding yourself with an environment that pushes you. But that's like basics of like what your environment is.
Yeah. And I think that like once we on the surface, it's like, oh yeah, like that's all important. And I think every photographer in the history of, well, at least the last 20 years cares about the space that they work in. I don't think I've met a photographer who isn't aesthetically inclined in some way, shape, or form. So, like, of course, we think about, like, I've got this one of a kind painting and I've got like my books and like I want my background to look nice because it's something that like I feel is important. And I have, because my windows are here and there, I've got lights here. And like those lights give me, like every photographer is thinking about light all the time. But like that's just like a small part of environment. Environment to me is uh it's like the soil that I'm growing myself in. And like you said, it can be so many different contributing factors, or there can be so many different contributing factors. I think, you listed a bunch. A couple others would be like, what are your inputs? So, what kind of like books are you reading? What kind of even like TV and movies, uh, podcasts, like whatever else. And so yeah, it's like it's your friends and your family and it's the physical space that you occupy. It's also like who you allow to speak into your life and your business. And once we start to think about all of those different things, I think we can all think of probably like one person in our life who usually like we don't feel as good after we talk to them. And we can think of one person in our life who every time we talk to them, we're just like, wow, I feel like I could like run through a brick wall. And so like energized and motivated. And so yeah, like when we talk about environment, that's what we're talking about is guarding and selectively choosing what to surround ourselves with, what is going to be allowed in. And and yeah, we're Morgan and I are very, very selective. It doesn't mean, by the way, that you can't be friends with like those three best friends that you have from high school. It doesn't
Right.
mean like, oh, like you have to ditch those people. I think a lot of times we can misunderstand it to mean that. But really, it's about like, who are you letting speak into your life? There are certain people in my life who they might give me advice, and I just know that I don't want the kind of life that they have or the kind of business that they have or the kind of family that they have. And so they're just not the experts that I listen to for
Yep.
those areas.
I yeah, there's one person in particular that we both yeah, that I can think of right off the top of my head who's like, "Okay, we take that advice with a grain of salt and move on." And I wanted to circle back around to, like, these, like, childhood friends too, because I think it's really important to touch on this a little bit more, is if those, like, childhood friends or, like, your best friends are still, like, bringing you up and, like, supporting you and, like, rooting for you and, like, make you feel good when you I'm not saying they're building your ego by any means, I'm saying that they're, like, a good friend. That doesn't mean you, like, cut them out of your life. It might just mean that you don't talk business with them.
Mhm.
That's something that, I learned pretty quickly. My 2 best friends I've, had since one since I was 5 and one since I was 12, and both of them work corporate jobs and work 9 to 5, and they have great lives, but it's nowhere near like it's not the life that I want, and that's fine because it's the life that they want and they choose. But they're still like, first of all, incredibly supportive of me. Me and my best friend have talked about like She's like, "I don't know how you don't know where your paycheck is coming from every day." And I'm like, "I don't know how you sit at a desk every day." Like, it's everybody's life is different and everybody's personalities are different, but we respect each other and we still support each other and build each other up. And, like, we also are super supportive in other aspects of our life that we can talk about, like parenthood and things like that, because we're going through it together. And so we don't just mean like speaking about like your business, but like how are these people in your life supporting you like where you need it and building you up. So, and then one other thing I wanted to, or another thing I wanted to touch on was, you had mentioned environment, and I'm like sitting here looking around. I'm like, I need to clean my office so badly. I have probably 20 SD cards on my desk right now. I have post-it notes everywhere, and I'm like getting anxiety looking at this. And no, I'm not going to be as productive as I need to be because there is crap everywhere. Uh, and, like, funny enough, like, I, like, knocked out a, 8-hour workday yesterday, and this stuff was here yesterday. But I also went downstairs afterwards and cleaned my living room and kitchen. So, like, it's not just, like, making sure everything's aesthetically pleasing, but, like, putting yourself in an environment that is conducive to supporting you and letting you thrive. And so there are a few things that, like, I always need around me. Like, I have sticky notes on my iMac that sits behind my MacBook that I literally never use, but that has, like, some of my favorite quotes and then, like, some of my goals in my business. And so that although it probably seems messy to everybody else, like, it's there for me. But then there's other things that I'm like, "These need to go. They've gotta get gone," and honestly, probably when we're done recording, I'm going to, like, clean my office really hardcore because it needs to be done. So, things like that are super important as well.
Yeah. And I think you touched on something really important. Like, environment is not aesthetic. Aesthetic can contribute to environment.
Absolutely.
Um, it's just that, like, I think there's like a what's the purpose of this changes a little bit. And so when I think about environment, it's not necessarily that everything looks and feels perfect. It's that what is around me is contributing to, I don't even want to say my success. I think I'm just going to say it's contributing to me moving in the direction that I have decided to go in.
I was gonna say
And
productivity.
yeah. And I mean, like, but it's not productivity because sometimes that, like, again, like calling back to parenthood, like you're not worried about productivity in parenthood.
Right.
You're going to design an environment that's good for your family
Mhm.
because that is, and that's, aesthetic or not, is like, I remember when you showed me Cam's nursery for the first time. And it's like every mom wants that nursery to have a certain aesthetic. And
Yep.
then you become a parent, like your
Mhm.
baby is born and then like starts crawling and moving around. And there are things that have to change to promote to move forward in the direction that you want to go. Like, you don't want your kid to be electrocuted, and so you make sure that those sockets are covered up. You don't want your kid to be like to die on the corner of a coffee table, and so you sometimes swap out furniture. And like the same is true in our work or our businesses, is that we have to make sure that everything around us is contributing to rather than taking away from. It's like at at worst, something can be neutral, not contributing to or taking away. And I think like some really good examples are like here in my office, I don't have any fiction books. I'm a big fiction reader. I love fiction, but I don't have fiction books in my office because I want my mind, when I swivel around and look at my bookshelf, I want
Mhm.
every single book on that shelf to be one where I'm going, ooh, oh yeah, that idea from that book. Oh man, remember when I applied that thing from here. And so I want it to be contributing to. And I know that, like, if I'm scrolling through my fiction books as well, like, that's gonna distract me. And I don't even put memoirs or anything in here. Like, it is like, it's business or bust. Like, that's it.
That's funny because we've never actually talked about that before,
Like,
but my bookshelf directly to the right of my desk is all of my business books. And then the one that I'd have to like turn my desk around to see is all of my fiction, or I mean, there's some nonfiction in there, but they're like true crime books type things, and also art history books from college. But those are like back farther because they're not as important. And another thing in my environment that's like also like helped keep things in perspective and keep me moving forward is uh this is gonna sound like super like weird and random, but one thing I've always wanted to own a 1968 Shelby GT 500 Mustang. Like that is like I'm very specific. I know exactly what I want. It fell down, so it's not up right now, but I have a poster of all of the years of the Mustang and the different body styles from the 50th anniversary, and it normally goes on that wall right there. But as Megan said, I have a child and other thing baby proofing has come before, like, getting my poster back up, but because it's, like, also, like, framed and nice too. So that like, that's one thing that I'm like, "Okay," like, that's always my goal. Like, obviously, like, there are more important things, but it's, like, pushing me towards one of my goals because it's always in the back of my mind. So I think that's really important for, everything that you're like that you're surrounding yourself with is pushing you towards your goals.
and so
Um,
I think, okay, so we've talked a lot about like physical environment. We've talked a little about relationships, specifically more around like friends. So I want to talk more about like the professional relationships we have, because I think you and I have both experienced this. Is like we love photographers, but sorry, we love photographers, but photographers can be some of the most negative people I've ever encountered.
Absolutely.
Like, I would rather hang out with, like, corporate girlies than a lot of
Yeah.
photographers, because
And we
it
do.
and it's not right, and it's not about, like, it's not even, like, money mindset. It's just, like, this
Scarcity.
yeah, it's like this invisible feeling, I literally think of photographers as, like, putting themselves in a box.
Mhm.
And so, like, when I was starting to grow my business bigger, and when I had this, like, vision of what I wanted to grow it into, I was very careful about the photographers that I spent my time with. Now, I was really, really blessed to have an incredible group of photographers that I was a part of. But even a lot of them, it was like, get to six figures and like,
And that's it.
that's good. And like, there's nothing wrong with that, but that wasn't where I wanted to go. So again,
Right.
like, this is so important for environment. It's not about like there's not necessarily like a right way. Like, you know me, I'm always saying there's no one right way.
Right.
I love that there are plenty of people who are happy to do, $100,000 a year, and like, they're shooting 20 weddings a year, and like that's it. Like, they're good. They're happy. They are fulfilled. That's what they want. There's nothing wrong with that. But when I wanted to get bigger, when I wanted to grow beyond what I was seeing most photographers doing, I had to start surrounding myself with photographers who were doing more. And I had to get more outside of I
Okay.
started playing with other businesses, you know?
Yeah. So what I remember one of the first times you took me to traffic and funnels.
Yeah.
And you're like, "Hey, I want you to come with me. I want you to be in this environment." But also, like, we had planned to be together today and I've got to run down there. And I'm like, "Okay, cool. Yeah, no big deal." And I walk in and like I already knew some people there, like we'd met before.
Yeah.
And I remember I don't remember who we were talking to, but we were standing at his cubicle and we're talking about like sales and strategy and like what that looks like and like how he's reaching his goals now, like how he started from like the bottom and now he's like at like some sort of like managerial position or something and like what he's doing to reach those goals. And he started asking me, he's like, so tell me about like your offer. And I was like, I'm a wedding photographer. I don't have an offer. I mean, I do, but like not the same way like, Traffic and Funnels has offers and their clients have offers. And I'm like, and I left there being so inspired. I think I went home and worked for another like 5 hours that night. But because I remember being like, I've got to show up and because I want to be in this environment and I want to be, first of all, I want to be able to afford their programs. And second of all, I want to be around the people that they're serving and the people in their world because that's where I strive to be. I like strive to make a difference uh, and be able to provide this great life for my family where we don't have to worry about money. And I knew that wasn't the first time I knew that, like, I needed to stop hanging out with photographers, and I don't mean, like, I'm cutting all my photographer friends out. I mean, like, I have to be specific about who I spend my time with. But it really, like, resonated with me that, like, okay, I need to pull inspiration from outside of just the photography world because, like, that's where I'm not learning enough there. Uh, and by putting myself around these people, I'm so inspired and, like, want to do more and to do better. And that's not the only time that's happened, but that's one time that, like, sticks out to me specifically was, like, being in there, and then, like, we walked into another meeting that was crazy too. But yeah, I think, like, that is so incredibly important. Uh that you're surrounding yourself with people that are not only photographers and videographers, but people outside of your industry and people who are above where you're at. I think that's one of the biggest things is surrounding yourself with people at a higher level than you are. And the problem is with photographers, it only seems like we go up to a certain amount and then they switch to educators and they don't really educate you once you get past 200,000 and they don't tell you how they got past there. And I'm not saying this to like throw shade at anyone. I just think like they're reaching the majority, but you have to find the people who are outside of that majority if you're wanting to grow further than that. And that typically means going outside of our industry because there aren't a lot of people sharing their experiences and their life with you. Uh,
Mhm.
and like I before I want to like just say something real quick. I had a neighborhood like mom friend reach out and be like, "Hey, a group of us are going to dinner. If you want to come, like we'd love to have you there." And I didn't see the message right away and I also forgot to respond. So I literally have never responded to this. But I thinking about like the list of people that she sent me that were going. I'm like, all of these people are not the people that I want to be spending my time with because they're worried about little things that I can't relate to. Like one of them, and I hope she never hears this because she'll know exactly who I'm talking about. But one of them is talking about like we're getting Publix in our town, and she's asking like how prices compare to Kroger and Walmart because that's what else we have in our town. And I was like, well, it's more expensive, but it's worth it. She's like, well, can you clip coupons? I was like, I don't know. Like, I have no idea. Like, I have never clipped coupons. And I'm not saying that, like, to be bragging or anything like that, but, like, that's not the world I live in,
Right.
and it's hard for me to surround myself with people like that because it feels like I have to
Mm.
dial back who I am because they can't relate.
That reminds me of, and you're gonna laugh because you've heard this story probably many times
Many
at this
times.
point. But so during COVID, I moved to Nashville in 2019, in early 2019. I had I had an amazing friend group essentially built in, not of locals, but of people who were in the mastermind that I was in, the business mastermind that I was in, who would all fly to Nashville regularly. And so, like, at least once a month, I had people who I could hang around with. And then I would just be heads down for 3 weeks or so. And then everyone would come into town again. We would have a fun, wild week. And so that was my friend group. Well, obviously during COVID, all the in-person stuff stopped. And so I didn't really have, I mean, this was when you and I became friends, Morgan.
Friends, yeah.
Uh, but like I mean, we'd already started hanging out before that, but this was like you were now my only or like one of maybe five like actual friends
Yeah.
in town. Uh and so I two things happened. One was I joined a different mastermind because it I thought it would be a better fit for me.
That's the one that I was standing there as you, like, gave your credit card over the phone?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
it was I think it was on my birthday.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So that was one thing that happened. And then the other was, uh, I became friends with I had gotten a puppy during COVID because my previous dog had just passed away. And so I became friends with all the other new puppy, like the COVID puppy people. And first, it was great because, like, they were always around and we could just go out to a local lot and let the puppies run around and have fun. And it was so filled with cuteness. But then those people became my friends. And I remember I was standing in my kitchen and one of them was over at my apartment. And she was talking and talking about this, like, terrible grocery shopping trip that she had, and I just was like, "What? Like, what is she talking about?" And she said, "So, that's how I blew $68 that I'll never get back." And I remember being like, "$68? That whole rambling long
Right.
story was because she was upset about $68?" I was like, "I got a $68 steak last week." And,
Yeah.
like and a $300 glass of whiskey. Like, I can't tell these people about my life because I know that, like, that's something that, like, is not like, they'll think, "Oh my gosh, like, that's so wasteful," or, like, I'll get lots of judgment. And, like, I frankly, even now, like, I don't look at the prices of what I'm buying. I just buy what I need. Same thing
Yeah.
with gas is like I buy gas. I don't pay attention to the price of gas. Like I have to buy gas to get to the places where I am
Right.
going. So like why would I, you know? So
Gonna go 5 miles out of my way to get
oh
10
my
cents
god.
off.
Amen. Yeah.
Am I
Um
going to use my Kroger points still? Absolutely, but
for me it's Shell. Yeah.
yeah.
So that was like the friend group. I was like, "Oh wow, like this friend group isn't serving me." And then for the mastermind that I joined, it became very quickly apparent that so I think it was like $1 million mastermind or something like that. And very quickly I realized no one around me is doing $1 million. Like
Really?
they're all aspiring to that, but everyone was stuck around the I would say like 20 to 30K a month mark. And, I was just like, "Oh, like, no one here is inspiring to me." And so I rejoined with my previous mastermind in I think it was, like, September of that year, and, like, that's when that business really took off,
Mhm.
uh, and I know that I wouldn't have been able to do it without that, not because I'm not capable, but because it accelerated, because of that decision, I was able to go 0 to $1 million in my first year in business for that business, and, that I actually like surpassed a million. And that was wild to me because
That
I
wasn't
didn't
your goal.
I didn't know that I could do that. Like I was ahead of schedule. I thought that I was gonna
Right.
hit that later, like, not that much later, but later, and yeah, so it was very again, it was about the environment that I was in, and that environment was in-person events literally every month in Nashville with people who were very inspiring, people who were challenging, people who would question me when I said stuff like, you know, when you say, "I'm a wedding photographer, I don't have an offer," I remember thinking at the time, a wedding but, like, wedding photography, that's an offer. Like,
Effort.
everything is an offer, and, like, you have offers, you have products, like, those are the 2 things, and I just like, I remember thinking, like, "Oh, we have to talk about that," and I don't think we ever did, but
No, but I know now, and I think I did know, like, leaving there, I was like, I know it's an offer, but, like, when I said that, I meant, like, I it's not the same way that everybody here has offers, if that makes sense.
I just
Uh,
but I, like, fundamentally disagree with that. Everything that you are collecting money for is either a product or an offer, so like, it's all the same, like, it's all like, we're all learning from the same even, like, a good example is when I learned IPS and I went
mm,
to Steve Saporito's workshop in 20 in Reno, Nevada, I think it was. Um, I he taught a principle of the only 3 ways to make more money in your business, and I didn't know it until 20 I think 20 late 2018, early 2019, when I was in traffic and funnels, they taught about Jay
oh,
Abraham's principles, and Jay Abraham had come up with this framework of the only 3 ways to make more money in your
yeah,
business. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, my" like, I didn't know he didn't have to give attribution to Jay Abraham because that wouldn't have meant anything to me,
right,
but, like, aha, I learned something, and so it's like, business principles are business principles, and when you hang out with
right,
people who understand business principles, you're getting an education, you're getting this, like, deeply ingrained shift of beliefs, and that we didn't plan any of this, we didn't talk this through, but, like, that is what the whole environment thing is about, is it's up-leveling your beliefs, shifting your beliefs, making sure that what is around you aligns with what where you are going to be. And there's a really important thing in our brain called the reticular activating system that basically when you it so it this is the like, oh, I want a white Toyota Camry, so now I see white Toyota Camrys driving everywhere. For me it was I want a Genesis GV80, so I literally see them everywhere even though they're not that common of a car. And but that's my I hardwired my brain, that's the reticular activating system. I
mhm,
made my brain look for what I wanted and like find it in my environment. And so when we fill our environment with the things that we want, people who are ahead of us,
mhm,
this aspirational life, there's an aspirational business. Our brains, our reticular activating system basically starts to create a way to get there. And my way to getting my Genesis GV80 was not how I would ever have dreamed of getting it. Maybe that's a story for another time, but and by the way, this isn't manifesting. Like that's not what this is. Like we're not talking about manifesting. We're talking about engineering your environment for your success to get you where you want to go. So, I think we covered a lot. What do you think? Do we need to
I
talk more?
think so. Yeah, no, I think that's good. I do wanna add one last thing
Yeah.
before we sign off. If you are in a coaching program that you don't feel fulfilled in, don't don't hesitate to leave just because you feel obligated to be there.
Yeah.
That is so important. I recently did this as well. And like if it's not fulfilling you anymore or you're not getting enough out of it, you can leave.
Yeah.
And you can look for what is a good fit for you. So I just wanted to throw that out there. It yes.
Yeah. So, I remember that the mastermind that I paid for while you were on the, or like I was
Yeah.
giving my credit card number while you were there. I paid $30,000 for that mastermind. I only used it for, I think it was like 7 months of the 12 months. So I paid for the whole thing, but I stopped using it for the last 5 months because it was not my people. And like people all the time look at things as bad investments. That was such a good investment. And if you invest in something that turned out to not be the right thing for you, and it doesn't have to be that like the environment is bad. It could be that like the teaching doesn't align with your style. Like I had another one where I bought a $5,000 coaching program, and like 3 days in, I was like, this just does not jive with me. And
Right.
I just never showed up after that. And I've never regretted it. It Both of those experiences taught me things, and I literally got further because of those experiences. But I'm hardwired to find the positive in stuff. Like I choose
Right.
to to believe that everything is for me. So, yeah, don't stay in an environment just because you paid for it or are paying for it that is not serving you. Everything needs to serve you.
Okay, well, I think that's good for today. That was way longer than we expected.
Yeah.
But I hope that was helpful for you guys. We will see you next week. We will put our website and the link to the Wedding Multiplier Toolkit in the show notes. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. If you could leave a review and subscribe, that would be fantastic, and share with your friends. Anything else, Megan?
Nope. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, bye guys.